Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown. And today we're going to go back 44 years to the very, very strange case of the death of Bill Comeans, a teenager in just outside of Columbus, Ohio. And the family is still trying to understand what happened to him because it was, well, shall we say, very, very peculiar. So there are three different events that happened, two before he died and the third one during which he died. And I'm going to go through the story. I'm going to go through what people think, what the family is doing, and then I'm going to analyze each one of these incidents and tell you what I get from them. So that's what we're going to do. I want to welcome everybody who is in the chat room. I've got a pretty full chat room today, so I'm glad you're all here. And if you would like to be in the chat room, that's Patreon in the link below, $5 a month, and it supports this educational channel. And also you get to come to 2 live shows a week, one on the weekend, the case show like this, and one during the week, which is a hangout, which includes news and questions and whatever is sort of to be talked about. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. Please do subscribe to the channel, though. All of my videos are public. Once this show is over, once the live show is done for patron only, then it goes public about the next week. And so all of my shows are public because I want people to learn and not have money be an issue, or whether you want to support the channel or not to be an issue. I want you to be able to learn from the channel. Please do please do hit the bell for notifications and check my playlist. All right, now, okay, to this case. It's quite a doozy, shall we say. So let me get to the basic story and start there. So I'm going to borrow, there's not much out about this case, by the way, very, very little. And the only place I got any strong amount of information is something it's linked below. And it is from a True Crime Garage. Nick and his buddy go through the crime, all the details of it. And they both of them do something that I never really like, which is analyze, given their opinions on every aspect of the case. And they're not professionals, as far as I know, in the crime field or in profiling or anything. But I'll say this. I thought they did a pretty good job. And so I'll give them some respect for that. You know, I always say you don't have to be a profiler or a detective to necessarily be good at doing analysis. That's what I'm teaching here, so that people can do analysis in their own lives. Or if you are a detective or you're working any kind of related field, let's say you're working as a psychologist, you kind of have to analyze your patients. If you're working in school, you might want to analyze your students. So analysis goes a long way, not just for homicide, but for all other aspects of life. So I thought, now a lot of times when people do these shows and they're storytellers and then they start going off into their analysis, I don't like it, because I'm like, oh my God, please stop. Just tell us a story, because you can't analyze very well. But in this case, I was fairly impressed. So the link is below. And the other thing is clear that they live in the area. This is a very personal case to them, and they have information I couldn't find anywhere. And when I tell you what information they have, which I found nowhere else, I'm assuming they got it from maybe the library, or I don't know, somewhere where they're able to access information far beyond what's out there. And it really was helpful to learn about that information. But I can't say it's absolutely accurate, because they didn't say where they got it from, but it sounded pretty reasonable to me. So I thank you very much. What's the name of it? I forgot. True Crime Garage. Okay, thank you for the work you did on this case and putting this information out there, because it helped me. So that's where I got a lot of my information, and I got some elsewhere. All right, so let's see what the story's about. So this happened in 1980, January 7th, 1980, a few days before his 15th birthday. Bill Comeans left his house in New Rome, Ohio, a suburb of Columbus, to pick up his sister Kathleen. She was 9 years old, from a birthday party next door. Okay, now some of this seems to be not correct. I don't believe. I saw a little news thing, news channel thing that said the house was 2 doors down, not next door, but 2 doors down. which is interesting to me. And so she was at a kind of evening party. And so he went there. When he arrived at the party, she told him she didn't want to leave yet. So he stopped at home to help his father work in a car in the garage before leaving again. Okay. So it's just very important in the sense that the house that the little girl was at was either the neighbor's house or the next neighbor's house. Okay. She's 8 to 9 years old. Theoretically, she could walk a house over or 2 houses over on her own because the houses were like right next to each other. Okay. So they were small houses, looking like this. It's like little tiny, little small houses. So she was just a couple houses over or 1 house over. She could have just trotted across a couple lawns. However, the family obviously was concerned for her safety. So they sent their son to go get her, which I kind of respect, and this is 1980s. This wasn't after so much internet where everybody thinks serial killers are behind every tree. So the fact that they were concerned enough to provide good safety for their daughter is pretty cool. So anyway, he went over there. She said, "I'm not ready to go." So he just went back home. Now, so he stopped at the home to help his father work on a car in the garage. The car was not functioning, which is why their family was going to go someplace, but it wasn't functioning. For the people out there, I was about to say pineapple, and only the people in the chat room will understand that because my screen just froze. I was trying to roll up the thing here. A few hours later, all right, he had not returned home. Now, let me stop here because that's not entirely the story. So because there's so little information on the story, I'm going to have to kind of clear it up. Supposedly what happened was this 14-year-old just turning 15 soon. It's January. It's cold. He went up to get his sister. She said, "I'm not ready." He goes home. His father's working in the garage. Now, this is another important thing. That the garage is behind the house. All right. Small little house, garage behind the house. He goes and helps Dad in the garage. And then he goes in the house. And I would assume we're talking, if the garage is behind the house, I'm assuming he's going out the back door of the house. This is very important. So keep all of this in mind. He's going out the back door of the house. He's not going out the front door of the house and running around down the driveway I don't see why he would do that because almost everybody had a back door, a kitchen door or whatever. That would be very close to the garage. So he goes in, gets a cup of coffee, takes it to his dad. And then the story is questionable what happens here. As far as I know, the dad came in and said, where is he? And Mom said, I thought he was out in the garage. And he's like, I thought he came back in because his brothers were there. His mom was there in this tiny, small house. And he never was seen back in the house again. Okay. Now, there's another story somewhere. Was in a newspaper article, actually, from the time. And it claims in that newspaper article that he went back out to take down some Christmas decorations because this was January. So that's another story. And I don't know the accuracy, which one is true. But that was the last time he was seen alive. So he disappears from either his front lawn, if he went out to do the decoration thing, or from the garage after he took the coffee to Dad. So the story goes on. After I get so now here's another part of the story, and I have to apologize, not for myself, but just for the lack of information in general, because when you do any kind of profiling or analysis, you want to make sure that the information you have is accurate. I prefer police reports, but this is an educational channel. It's not a crime-solving channel. So I'm trying to teach you looking at what we have and also being willing to say, I'm not so sure about this piece of info. It says here, a few hours later, Comeans hadn't returned, returned home. So father and brother went looking for him. At around 9 p.m., they found him a few blocks away, near these, a few blocks away from the house, in a snowy ditch by the railroad tracks and under under a group of trees. He was supposedly found face down and had been strangled by his own winter scarf. Despite his brother's attempts to resuscitate him, Bill Comeans was pronounced dead at the hospital 2 hours later. An autopsy later concluded he had died of a cardiopulmonary arrest due to compression of the neck. His killer was never found. Okay, so the part that I have problems with here is a few hours later, he hadn't gotten back. Now, there's other locations, other information that a few hours hadn't passed, that when they went to look for him and couldn't find him fairly soon after, and not 3 hours, so some even just say 20 minutes, 30 minutes, that they called the police and the neighbors, and they went looking for him. I don't know which one is true. I don't know whether they didn't call the police and they went out looking for him and found him and then called the police. I don't know if that was added later because it sounded better, or whether it was that way and it was just left out. Don't know. I wish I did, because that does mean a lot in this story. Okay, so he's found here with a scarf around his neck. The brother supposedly took a knife and cut the scarf off his neck. The brother was an older brother, and they tried to do CPR, the brother and the father, over and over, and had no success. And so they went to the hospital, and they couldn't. It was far too late. So we're talking 1980. So no cell phones. So they probably somebody had to go back to the house and call the police, get an ambulance out. So now that's the last incident. That's incident number 3. Okay. Now there's more to this story. All right. So here's what happened. Here's the rest of what happened. I'll give you the 2 other incidents. I'm going to go back over all of this, but I just want you to know the basics. All right. So, all right. This is what had happened before. He had been brutally attacked on 2 separate occasions a few months before, in September and October of 1979. The first time, he told his parents that 2 unidentified men had attacked him while he was on his paper. Oh, sorry. That's not correct. Boy, this article's junk. Anyway, that's really not correct. Okay, I'm going to let me redo this for this crappy Daily Dot. Okay, you're really wrong, Daily Dot. Okay, supposedly he was leaving school on his bicycle and decided to go through the woods. You know, some kids like to go through trails in the woods. On the crime garage, they thought it was strange. At least one of them did, that it was out of the way. It wasn't like right there on the way home. It was kind of out of the way. Could he have gone there for more privacy for some reason? Yes. But also, sometimes kids just like to ride bicycles to the woods. You know, especially, I don't know what kind of bike he had, but, you know, just fun trail kind of thing. Anyway, he's riding through this area. 2 unidentified men. He was unable to identify them at all, what race they were, or how old they were, or what anything about them. They attacked him while he was riding along on this bicycle, supposedly coming up behind him, by placing a plastic garbage bag over his head and wrapping a bicycle inner tube around his neck. And then supposedly he fought and managed to get that off of him, and the 2 of them ran away. That's sort of the story. Now, right here, the story is very small. I don't have a police report. I don't see anybody in the family reading a police report or giving exact information. Now, mind you, the parents are long dead. The sister is the one who's really out here, and I'm going to show you what the sisters put out, which is very, very. It's just very sweet and just absolutely. I'll show you in a minute, but there's nothing from her that is clear, like this is exactly what happened. This is what he said, according to my parents, or according to the police report, according to the detective, which there is a homicide detective on this case. So he's not giving you this information, even though it's been 44 years. But the story, that's the story. That 2 guys came up. I didn't hear they were on bicycles, so I'm not sure how they caught up. But anyway, that's the story. I'll get back to, I'm going to analyze each one of these, but that's the first story. He goes home, he runs home, tells the family, and they do call the police, and the police find the bicycle still there with the plastic bag and the bicycle, what's it called? Bicycle inner tube. All right. Second time he's attacked is a month later. Two men jumped out. Now, this is the time he was actually doing the paper route, although they left that out. He was going to collect money from his customers, and he wasn't on a bike. So I think they inverted those two things. Anyway, he's going to collect his money. They jump out of an aqua-colored car and tie a rope around his neck and leave him under a tree, which is in the bushes in the tree, somewhere along that route. He passes out for 5 hours before regaining consciousness and walking home. The parents take him to the hospital. And yeah, because obviously he said he was passed out for 5 hours after being strangled with a rope. Okay. I don't know what happened to the rope. I don't know what happened to police issue on this one. Police report, supposedly, yes, was reported to the police, but I don't know if it was after he was in the hospital and they had to report, or the family, whatever. That was the time they talked to the staff and said, yeah, get the police in here. I don't know. All right. Here's some other information. Then I'm going to go back over the different incidents. While Comeans was unable to identify his assailants in either occasion, he, his best friend, and his girlfriend found threatening notes in their lockers. So there were these notes, kind of like these type of things, written in, obviously faked, block printing. Some were supposedly done with newspaper cut out letters and stuff. They were in his locker, his best friend's locker, and his girlfriend's locker. All right. By the way, the girlfriend, there's no information about her whatsoever. I don't hear any information from the girlfriend, from the best friend. So that's another thing. It's just like all these people seem to be, they all say he's a great guy. The school said he's the nicest guy, the perfect guy, and everybody says he's perfect because he's just really nice. And I'll show you why it seems like that in just a minute. From what his, let me finish with the letters. Threatening notes in their lockers around the time of the attacks. Now, some people say, well, how did somebody know the combinations to the lockers? I'm going to guess, if I remember lockers, they have the slots like air vents, and you could just shove that sucker through. So I don't believe they had to know those combinations, but somebody would have to be in the school to do that. This is not going to be outside human beings, okay? This is not going to be some guy down the block who hates, a couple guys down the block who he's pissed off who are going after him. It would have to be in the school because the notes were put in the lockers in the school, had to be from likely another student or another couple of students. And since one of the times was when he was taking the bicycle through the woods from the school, perhaps he was followed or something by two people from the school. That's what you could put into a theory. Now let me read the rest of this. Although detectives did not reveal the contents of the notes, which is quite stupid, at some point they should have done, well, maybe they have done it now, just a little bit. And how these things were written is important to be able to match to other people. But at the time, I'm not sure they did it right away. Or maybe they did after he died. I'm not sure. That, again, is information I don't have. But although the detectives did not reveal the contents of the notes, 8 families in Comeans' neighborhood received similar threatening missives about 9 months after his death, which read, "You're next. Time is short. All have been warned." While Franklin County Police initially thought the messages were a hoax, according to an article in the Freelance Star, handwriting analysis later concluded that the same person who wrote the messages to Comeans' neighbor also authorized the notes to Comeans. Which this is where proper information is useful. So if the notes to him, his friend, and his girlfriend in their lockers were the same notes that were sent after his death, 9 months after his death, to the neighborhood, clearly he can't send them because the guy's dead. So that supports that this is a murder, because So if the notes are connected to his death, then he was murdered by somebody who sent the notes to him and then to the neighbors. However, apparently that is not true, and that handwriting analyst doesn't know what they're talking about, because the police were able to identify the person who sent the notes after he died. And it was a crazy lady in the neighborhood who, for whatever freaky reason, which was pretty sick, decided to send these notes to people in the neighborhood. They are not connected to these. So there, that blows that completely out of the water. So get rid of that. Now we're basically back to just the notes in the lockers. All right. So that is the basic story. Okay. I'm going to just check a couple comments here, and then I want to go to what the family has been doing about this. True. There's always one crazy lady in the neighborhood. And it appears to be true. Okay, we're going to get to the defense issues in a second. They said there's apparently no defense injuries. Let's see. This is a good point. Christine says he lived in a small town. This is true. Hard to believe he wouldn't have any idea who attacked it. I don't buy it. Well, he supposedly maybe didn't see the first two guys that attacked him, but the guys who jumped out of a vehicle, I don't have any information that they were wearing masks. So you would think he would see them to be able to identify them. He did say they were white and two youngish guys, like 20s, but he didn't seem to know them, which would be odd. Like, why would two complete strangers be going after a high school kid? All right, so okay, the issue about the consciousness, I'm going to get to that when I talk about that particular incident. I don't believe any of these stories. Okay, so they're very weird stories. Now, I want to go, before I go to analyze each one of these crimes, I want to show you this, because I think it's just very heartwarming. So his sister, I think it was 2014, started tweeting from beyond. He says, "Hi, my name is Bill Comeans. I am from the far west side of Columbus, Ohio. Mom and Dad love me very much. Here I am with my older brothers, Mike and Bob, and my little sister, Kathleen. My mom will never have another picture with her sons. I saved up my money for my paper route to buy this piano. This is me on a trip to Canada. My dad will never see this smile on my face again. My sister will never play games with me. Never again play games with me. You see, on January 7th, 1980, I was abducted from my front yard and murdered. I died that night. My other brother tried to breathe life back into my lifeless body as I lay in the snow. If you have any information, contact the Franklin County Sheriff's Department." And this is on his sister Kathleen put this up. Obviously, he just is not speaking from beyond the grave, although I'm sure one of the psychic channels will manage to do it. However, she put this up on his behalf, and she only has, you can say she's only got 25 subscribers because she only put up the one thing on her brother. But 31,000 people have seen this about her brother, and I think it's very, very sweet. And it got picked up by the news channels. So it was an interesting way to get attention here. So they're talking here about not only that the video she did, but she also had a Twitter account in which he talked from the grave from that. See, this is his Twitter account. Most of it was most of the tweets are in 2014 when she also did the video. This is when she reached out 10 years ago. And there's as time goes on, there's less and less tweets. I guess he's moved on in in heaven somewhere, and so he doesn't tweet as often. But anyway, this is his or his sister's account, and he says here, "Frozen in time, forever 14. I would have been 58 today. When you're young, you never think you never think you'll grow old. I never did. I never did." And this is another tweet. "Another birthday picture, not a care in the world. Who doesn't love a pet duck named Tiger?" Just beautiful. And I'll link below the video that she did, which is just so sweet, absolutely sweet. Um, and so then the television got a hold of it, and you see this is 10 years ago, this 2014, and it's nothing since, by the way. So a lot of times there's this, when a family makes an effort to reach out to find out what happened to their loved one, they might get one show on it, and then it just all dies along with the person that is already dead and doesn't come back. So they did a thing on this, and this is the detective, by the way. It is listed as a homicide by the police department. And this is a detective who believes it's a homicide. And when they asked him why, and he said because of his sister, that she 100% believes it was a homicide, and she's been fighting all these years, and so he's on her side. And it says here, so they have some DNA from, there's some kind of substance that was on the scarf, maybe could be something from the killer, or it could be that he vomited, and that's what it is. And they didn't test it. They didn't have the testing at the time, but they kept the scarf is there. But the problem is, the detective says it's such a tiny speck that they were reluctant to go ahead with it at certain points in time, because there wasn't the DNA technology it was such a tiny amount that they could only do one test and be over. But now it's been another 10 years. I just don't know why they don't just go ahead and test it, for God's sakes. It's just, what's the point of waiting any longer? Anyway, so he has a scarf out there, and there's also a couple other items. There's a knife, and that's supposedly some mace. I don't know. But there's a lot of, by the way, there is a lot of trash around there by the railroad tracks. There's a lot of trash. And so one of the problems you have with outside crime scenes, which are also often places where teenagers hang out, smoke weed, have sex. So you can have like condoms everywhere, DNA everywhere. God knows what falls on the ground. People drinking out there. So you'll have cans out there. It's a mess. So it's hard to tell when somebody goes and is murdered or dies in an outside location which has a lot of trash. It's a very compromised crime scene, and you don't know what belongs to the crime and what is just already there before the person died in that spot. So that is very problematic. So now, here we have this picture of that. So I think I see pieces of the scarf, and here we go. You see the mace thing and the knife. Now, what's interesting also about this, his brother cut the scarf off his neck. First of all, this is where I say there's such a lack of information. Was it with I don't know, did he have a knife in his pocket, pocket knife that he opened up and used? Did he bring a knife from the kitchen for no reason? I mean, this looks more like a kitchen knife. Was that the knife he used and he just dropped it there? I mean, or was that a knife that a killer used? Or was that a knife somebody dropped there? It had nothing to do with anything? I don't know. And I don't know what Mace is doing there, but all right. So there's a lack of information about what belongs to what. There's no clarity on that. So that is, so they got this information out, and really, quite frankly, nothing much came of it. Let me show you the pictures here's a couple pictures of this is the writing. So you were warned, all were warned. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if the lady in the neighborhood, did they actually show, after he died, did they show this? Because I wanted to see if anybody could recognize the handwriting, and then she decided to use that and make the same things. I don't know what belongs to what. So, but all I can say is the police determined that the woman was crazy, and she sent the things out after his death, and she's not the one that did anything to him. So I would say ignore the after letters. The before letters in the lockers are interesting. Okay, I have a couple other things here. Let me see. Look at the pictures here. Oh, that's the one article. And he was supposedly doing a homework project he never got to work on, which is sad. Planning for your future. So anyway, those are the pictures I have. So now I'm going to get to the crimes or the incidents. I'm just check your comments here for a second here. Why would you need to cut it off? This is a good question. It supposedly was so tight around his neck. If somebody was strangling him and pulled it tight to strangle him and then knotted it, yeah, you would have to cut it off, because it would be like frozen there in the cold and hard to get off. And you're trying to get it off quickly too. So, you might want to spend a lot of time trying to undo something. Again, there's no true, accurate description of this that one can, unless I had the police interview with the brother to say exactly what position did you find him in, and how did everything work? Where did the knife come from? See, these are the things we don't know. So we're going to have to accept sort of vague stuff. Again, we have no clue about any footprints in the snow. I can tell you this. All three crimes, there was no damage to his clothing, which is interesting. And there were also no defense wounds on his hands. Now, when he was found in the third incident where he was dead, he had these thick gloves on. So you wouldn't have defense wounds because of that. Riding the bicycle home, he would have no gloves on. I don't know, maybe he would have had gloves on when he was walking, going to do his paper route collection, money collection. If it was a night and it was cold enough, October, would he bother? I don't know, maybe. Again, we don't have any information on that. But there's no obvious defense wounds, nor is his clothing ripped or torn or anything, or scuffed, so there's nothing really obvious that way. Okay, so I'm going to go back now to incident number 1. Okay, so incident number 1. This happened in, also, let me point this out too. There's some claims that he was bullied. Okay, now this guy's a freshman, good-looking guy, seems to have a good family. A lot of times when kids are bullied, it's because they come, no, that's not always true. So if your kid's bullied and you've got a great family, don't just jump all over me now. But sometimes it's because kids come from a difficult background and therefore they're bullied because the other kids know it, like, oh, you're the poor kid, or your clothes are ugly, that kind of thing. This is not his case. Apparently, first of all, he seemed to have a great family. He had money because he bought this piano on his, because he seems like an all-around great kid. Everybody says he was a great kid. He's also 6 foot as a freshman, 180 pounds. If you're going to bully somebody, I'm thinking that might not be the kid to bully. Usually you pick on the smaller ones. And at 6 foot, 180 pounds, I'm going to say he can rival any senior in that high school. And he doesn't seem to be he doesn't have any, you say it's attractive looking guy, doesn't even have any physical problems. He seems strong enough. So I don't for a minute think that he's this weakling or easily bullied kid. So, and he even has a girlfriend already. He's getting a best friend. I don't buy any of that. So I think the bullying thing's crazy. And also the fact that this all happened right when they returned to school. Usually, it's just Labor Day, just after Labor Day. Either it's your first week of school, or it's your second week of school. You probably hardly know anybody in the school. You're coming in as a freshman. Who does he even know in that school? Nobody. So what? Within 2 weeks' time, some 2 students in the school take an absolute dislike of him to the point where they're going to start sending scary letters and chasing him down. Doesn't make sense. All right, so I have a problem with that. So the letters, which he could have written himself, because they were in his locker, his best friend's locker, his girlfriend's locker. He could put them there as well as somebody else. So let's just keep that on the table as a possibility. But I find the bullying thing unlikely. Now let's go to the first incident. So he's on a bicycle. If the 2 other guys aren't on a bicycle, I just don't understand how they followed him and kept up with him. Does he bicycle in slow motion? I mean, wouldn't he be off faster than them and they would be running behind him, And then if they're going to catch up, doesn't he? He's going through the woods. Does he not hear crunch, 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 crunch behind him and wonder who's behind him and look behind him? You would think. Now, this was also back in 1980 in fall. I don't think they're going to be wearing ski masks or any mask because it's not COVID or 4 years past COVID, where for some reason teenagers still really like wearing the masks. Because I do in my neighborhood is crazy. Like a third of the teenagers still wear masks. I think they like being masked. And not for health purposes. So I don't think they're going to be masked. So if he's bicycling through the woods, why doesn't he hear crunch, crunch, crunch? He's like, what the heck? And turn around and go, why are these guys following me? So, and then they have to get close enough to him while his bicycle is still moving to run up and throw a trash bag over his head. I'm finding that a little bit difficult to believe. Okay, so there's a problem. Next, let's say he decides he's, for whatever reasons, he's not really on the bicycle anymore. He's walking along. He got tired and started walking the bicycle, or a rough area. So, roots and stuff like that. So he decided he's going to get off the bicycle. Again, these guys sneak up on him. It's fall. Crunch, 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 crunch. Oh, no, wait a minute. Maybe it's still September. Maybe not crunch enough. Maybe they can still, maybe I'll take that back. Maybe it's not, the fall hasn't really hit Ohio yet. That's October. So, okay. So maybe they can sneak up behind him. Let's say they did. They throw a trash bag over his head, which means, they'd have to have a trash bag. Now, most people don't have a trash bag in their back pocket. Where the hell is a trash bag coming from? So this would have to be a premeditated crime. Look, let's get him today. We'll take a black trash bag. We'll take a trash bag from the school or from home, because I have a backpack. Okay, I have a backpack. I'm going to put a trash bag in there. And he also has this inner tube thing from the bicycle. Now, that would also mean they have to bring that from home, which seems a little odd. Why would they have that? They don't even have a freaking bicycle. Why are they bringing that? What is that, their choice of strangulation material? I mean, doesn't quite sound right. It doesn't. And as one of the, I think it was, I don't know which guy, I think was it Nick or the other guy pointed out on True Crime Garage, that they thought that a guy who has a bicycle may indeed have himself the extra emergency inner tube, because if your tire goes flat, then if you can fix it, you can take it home, right? And since he does newspaper routes, it makes sense that he would be the one that had the extra tube. So now so this happens to him. Hold on a second. Here's my technical problem. Now, what the heck? Why is that not working? That's really weird. Oh, okay, sorry. Thought my computer was, my internet's malfunctioning. Okay, so he leaves everything there, goes home, and says he was strangled by these two guys and he got away. Can't identify them. The whole scenario does not really make sense. From the fact that, again, just the beginning of school, why would anybody be after him? If it's from school, and they left. In other words, if he didn't write these letters, somebody else did, and they had to be a student in the school. So two people hated him within a week, decided they would go after a guy who's 6 foot and 180 pounds, somehow chase him down while he's going through the woods, and he's in the woods. So they had to run after him with their pre-planned plastic bag, and they happen to have the inner tube for the bike, which even though they don't have the bike. You see how this doesn't make a lot of sense? So he goes home. He tells his parents he was attacked by these people. They do report it to the police because, there's like, well, got to report to police. Somebody tried to attack and kill my son. They reported to the police and nothing much comes of it. Now, let's go to the second attack. Let me go get your comments first, just so I can see what you think about the first attack. Okay, somebody obsessed with him, a psycho. Well, there were two of them, not one, two, and both the first two incidents were two people, not one. Let's see, too young for schizophrenia. Not necessarily, but it is younger than most. Most of the time it's late teens. Yeah, so that's a good point. Okay. Mike says, all of this is based on what Bill described. That is really all we have. No witnesses to bullying of Bill outside his claims. This is a problem. Correct. When you have a story only coming from one person with no witnesses, it is problematic. And there were no witnesses to this crime. And yeah, there's stories. Okay. Christina says, a janitor from the school could have both sent the notes and had a trash bag. That's true, but does he have a buddy who wants to go kill off one of the students with him? See, it's very odd. I mean, it's just very odd. You used to have a spare tube. Well, good for you. I never did in my life. Of course, I didn't like biking that much. But yes, if you're going to bike at all a lot, you should have that. That's a good idea. Could they have been waiting for him instead of sneaking up behind him? Theoretically, yes. They knew what maybe supposedly this wasn't again, he's new to the school. How many would know he would take the bicycle through the woods, which is not the way home? The way home is this way. The woods were a roundabout way. How would they know he's going that way and get there before he did to sit in the woods? Is it possible? Yeah, not very likely. How does he know it was an inner tube if he didn't see the attackers? It's on the ground afterwards. So they put the trash bag over him, then threw the trash bag to cover him, and then put the inner tube around him. And then when they went back, the bicycle was there, the trash bag was there, and the inner tube was there. Evil says the fact that it seemed to be the same method, not escalating, that they didn't kill him on the previous incidents and didn't change from putting things around his neck doesn't sound like bullies to me. Bullies, here's the thing. I'm glad you pointed out. First of all, bullies usually beat you up. It's more fun that way. You corner the guy, you yell at him, you punch him out, you beat him. Usually trying to strangle him is not a normal bully thing. It's pretty weird. That is just very abnormal. The second, he said he didn't see them at all the first time because I put the trash bag over his head. The second time he said they were white guys. Smells like Jesse Smollett. Well, it is an interesting story. That is for sure. Okay, here's a good point. Mike says his young age, when one is very vulnerable, must be considered. The need for attention, love, and searching for purpose. They may create a false story to gain attention. Perhaps. He seemed to have a very happy home life. He seemed to do well in school. He had a girlfriend. He supposedly had a best friend. He was playing the piano. He was making money. That dude was a lot better off than me, let me tell you. I was not a happy teenager. I was very unhappy in school. And all of the things happening around me would probably prove the point. When I was in high school, he seemed to do really, really well. And he had this very supportive family. And I don't know, it doesn't seem like he doesn't seem to have behavioral issues or any major emotional issues. He seems like a super nice guy who's doing super well. That's what's so odd about the case. Okay, I'm going to go to incident number 2. All right, incident number 2. So now, a month later, he supposedly, and again, I say supposedly because I just don't have the tiniest details that I would like to have. He's walking along the street, gathering up his money from, as I tell you, he's gathering up money from the people he's delivering the papers to. He was also not robbed in any of these occasions. So any money he had on him, nobody took it. So he's walking down the street, getting the money from the neighbors, right? And he doesn't come home for 5 to 6 hours. When he does arrive home, he says, 2 guys jump out of a car. He does say they're white guys. He does say they were maybe 20-ish. So it doesn't appear that they sound like they're school kids, which again, if the letters were written by somebody in that building, you'd think it would be school kids. 2 guys, he can't identify them, so he does not know them. So when you bully people, usually it's somebody that's the whole point. They're school kids. You're like, it's Mike and Eddie, and you go home crying to your parents, and Mike and Eddie beat me up again today. He doesn't know these people. So these people, for no reason whatsoever, decide they're going to stalk him and kill him. So anyway, he gets, now this time, strangled with a rope around his neck. And he's unconscious for 5 to 6 hours, according to him. And now he's walks home and tells that to his parents, who call the police. All right, at this point, they take him to the hospital. Anyway, so he can I give that little bit of identification. Again, no defense wounds. And I am having technical difficulties. My internet is not functioning. So I'm going to go to my phone instead. Why is it doing this to me? Okay, wait a minute. Maybe it's just that one is not working. Okay, I want to point this out. Which, of course, I did. Oh, yeah. This is important. This is what struck me, and this to me is extremely, extremely important. If they strangled him, with a rope and he went unconscious, how long is he going to stay unconscious? Well, let me read this. If pressure is immediately released, consciousness will be regained within 10 seconds. To completely close off the trachea, the windpipe, 3 times as much pressure is required, and then brain death will occur in 4 to 5 minutes. Now, mind you, he doesn't have a broken hyoid bone in any of these cases. It's not a fractured hyoid bone, which is often what you see with strangulation. I don't know if there were any kind of imprint around his neck from this rope. I don't know what happened to the rope, but there is no way he's going to be unconscious for 5 to 6 hours. The only way that could happen is if he gets smashed over the head and is rendered unconscious that way. And then laying there, whether brain bleeding and all that crap, he finally wakes up, but would probably have some level of brain damage, and they would have him in the hospital for days if he recovered at all. So for him to be unconscious for 5 hours makes 0 sense, especially if he wasn't brained, which he wasn't. And so now he's got this supposed rope around his neck, which caused this. And he also, here's the other problem I have. He's going to pick up. Now, the family is very, very vigilant about the daughter being walked home 8 or 9 years old. Now, he's 14, 15, but he's already been, supposedly, if they believed him, they told the police about it. So it was reported that he was attacked leaving school by 2 people. He's now missing for 5 to 6 hours. They don't call the police and they aren't searching for him. Why the hell aren't they searching for him? I don't understand that. And then he shows up and says, I got attacked again. So then they take him in, and I don't know that they called the police on that or whether they just took him to the hospital and that was reported to the police, because that's what they do. So once he says that, so I don't even know if the family is really calling the police on these occasions. So after they tell them this story, which makes 0 sense, does the family start having suspicions that something's not right with him? That I would think that would be so, because neither story makes sense. In both cases, he escapes 2 guys who appear to be attempting to kill him. You know, normally when you strangle people, the whole point is to strangle them, not to half strangle them. It doesn't take long to strangle somebody. You grab the guy, you kidnap the guy, abduct him from as he's walking, pull him into the bushes someplace, put a rope around his neck, and I'm pretty sure you might as well finish the damn job, especially since he's seeing your faces. But no, they don't finish the job. But they let him look at, so he can identify them to the police. And then he just somehow lays unconscious for 5 hours. This whole story is garbage. Sorry, doesn't make a damn bit of sense. So I have problems already with both stories. So now let's look at one more thing. They did give him a polygraph, and he apparently showed massive deception. A polygraph over the letters and stuff, which I truly believe he wrote himself and put them in the lockers. Now, I don't know whether he did it, because again, we have bad information, whether he put them in the lockers after the first incident to try to back up, oh, see, I was attacked, see, and so he would be believed. But I think he wrote those himself. I think those two attacks never happened. So then you come to the third thing, and you say, well, the third one's getting a little weird, though. All right, so let's go to the abduction off the front lawn. He goes home, gives the coffee to his father. I'm going to talk a little bit about the gloves too, because there were fat gloves supposedly. I'm not sorry, gloves like what sounded like big fat mitten type things. I don't know. Again, why don't they show the damn picture? But they don't. So anyway, he goes out to give his father coffee. He's working with his father in the garage. You don't wear gloves, thick gloves when you're working in the garage. And it is January, so it can be cold, but maybe they have a heater out there or whatever. But if you're working on a car, you're not going to probably wear big, thick gloves because you can't handle the tools. Then he goes in the house and supposedly takes coffee to his dad. Again, he's going from the kitchen to the garage. He's not going to put his gloves on to do that tiny short walk. Then there's a story that maybe he was outside in front taking down the Christmas stuff. Again, if they're the big fat gloves, because they're saying with these gloves or mittens or whatever they really are, that he couldn't have tied the knot in the scarf around his neck very well because of these big fat things on his hands. Well, if that's true, he probably wouldn't wear them with the Christmas decorations he's pulling down either. But it is January, so maybe. But here's the thing. At some point, he had to put those gloves on. So at some point, he was not intending to go back to the garage. He gave the coffee to his father. They never saw him in the house. So did he have the gloves in his pocket? Did he go around the side of the house and start pulling on something? The claim is somebody abducted him at that point, which means they would really have to be watching him to catch him at that moment in time. And it's been, mind you, the last incident was October, and this is January, so we're talking November, December, we're talking almost 3 months later. So they attacked him twice and let 3 months go by, and on this one night, they decided to pop up again. Now they're going to try again. I don't hear about a car. His body's just found near the railroad track, so we're not talking anybody drove him anyplace. So somehow he got attacked on the front lawn. He didn't scream out. He didn't fight. He's already been, if these are the same two guys, if it were me, they're not taking me off that damn front lawn because I know they're trying to kill me, right? They're trying to kill me. Why would I go with them? Okay, so maybe that knife at the scene, maybe the knife, they jumped out, put it to his throat and said, come with us. I'm going to say again, are you kidding me? Because I take my chances on the front lawn before I go into the woods with two guys who I know want to kill me. And then when they get in the woods, they don't use the knife. They decide to strangle him instead with a scarf because they're really into strangling, apparently. So then they strangle him and then leave him to die. And this time he actually dies. At some point, the family realizes he's not on the front lawn and go look for him or call the police, whichever one. And I don't know which one it is. And he's dead. Now, the question on this third crime is that the other two crimes, you really can't prove how much those items were put around his neck because he survived them. So he can take, I don't know if he didn't return home with the thing hanging, like Jussie Smollett thing. He didn't return any place with the inner tube hanging around his neck, that was left at the crime scene. The rope, I don't know if he returned home with the rope around his neck. I didn't hear anything about that. But the last one, the third incident, he's actually dead with a scarf tied around his neck. There's not a question. Now, one of the things they say is about the whatever he's wearing on his hands, the thick gloves, mittens, whatever, couldn't tie well. Well, first of all, if you want to tie something tight around your neck, you can tie something tight around your neck and then put your gloves back on. You're not dead instantly. So you could tie it real tight and then it's possible. Or you could tie it most of the way and then just do that. So you have your hands available. Why he would put the gloves back on, I don't even know. Was it impossible, really, for him to tie it tightly with the damn gloves on? I would have to do a crime scene reenactment on that because they may just be exaggerating that. They may just simply take the glove, even if I wish I had some fat gloves here right now. I should have brought this for my, let's say it's really thick. But still, if he's wearing gloves that aren't so thick, he can take the Christmas decorations down, then his fingers are mobile. So once you put the thing around your neck and you go like this and you can grab the ends and pull tight and then you can do it again and then pull as tight as you damn well please. I don't know that requires you to take the gloves off. So I think, yes, he could do this himself. And since again, with no signs of a struggle, no signs of any defense, this happy boy just goes into the woods and decides to let two guys kill him. And somebody could say, well, they could have had a gun. Well, I guess so. But they didn't have a gun on the other two times, or even a knife. He doesn't talk about any knife on the other two times. Suddenly there's a knife at the scene, although, again, I don't know whose knife that is. But this time they didn't even want to strangle him with something. They didn't bring anything to the scene. So the first two times they bring all these items to strangle him with. And the last time they don't bother. They're just like, I hope he's wearing a scarf. I'm having issues with that. Let me check your comments. And then I'm going to go to some of the possibilities of if he did it himself, why he did it himself. Let's see. Pat sees stuff I never would. I'm a little deranged, probably. Attempted abduction. By whom? And when? Oh, thank you for. I want you to point this out. Thank you. You're not unconscious that long without drugs, a head injury, or a sleep. Yes, head injury would make you down for 5 hours, and that would put you in the hospital. They did find Valium in his system in the final incident. Now, again, don't know how much Valium was in his system. I don't know where the Valium came from, but that supposedly wasn't a system. Whether he was nervous and the hospital gave him Valium because it was in the 80s, maybe his mother takes Valium and he just took it out of her cabinet. But either this young man was not as psychologically secure as one would think, and he was having some issues, so he was drugging himself, or he was stressed out by these events, which were real, and therefore he was perfectly fine mentally, but he was stressed out. But he had Valium in his system when he ended up in the woods and died. And also Valium can sometimes depress respiration. Or it can it can make you relaxed enough to think you can do whatever you want to do. There's all kinds of possibilities in that. Let's see. Nothing. We know nothing about the brothers. The brothers seem like nice guys. Oh, I will point out one other thing, though. At one point, it was the father and the brother were there. And the brother was, I forgot how old the brother was. I think he was older. There's two older brothers. I don't know which one it was. Whether it was an adult brother, like 18 or 16-year-old, 17-year-old, I'm not sure. But originally the story I read was the brother and the father were on the scene. Then later on, I heard about a neighbor being there. So I don't know who was actually there, who was there first. Again, this is all important. This is what you would know if I were a detective. I'd be absolutely wanting this time frame. Why? Because it is not unusual for a family member to alter the crime. Why? If they find something at that crime scene which tells them what happened and they don't want anybody else to know what happened, they may alter the crime scene. For example, let's say he couldn't have put the rope on his neck with the gloves on. That doesn't mean they couldn't have put the gloves on his hands. In other words, it could have been lying on the ground and the gloves were there. They said he was face down. Do we know he was face down? Not necessarily. For example, it's entirely possible it was next to a grove of trees. It's entirely possible he was hooked up to a branch, which is what people use for because that helps them either commit suicide or it's autoerotic asphyxiation. It's sex. They're enjoying themselves, and that the pressure on your neck that gives you that high when the blood doesn't gets caught up there. That gives you a high, and that helps you have a better orgasm, theoretically. I've never tried it, so I don't know. But it's 85% of the guys who I found dead from autoerotic asphyxiation are male. Mostly it's a male thing. So he could have been attached to a tree, had a knot attached to a tree, so he was leaning into it. Possible. We don't know. They could have cut him off the tree, pulled that down and said they cut it off his neck. And they didn't. Maybe it was just pressing on his neck. And they cut him down. And they said, we found him this way, and I cut that off his neck. Who knows? There are times when people have found their loved one, like hanging in the closet with a belt. And they'll find that their jeans are pulled down and that there's pornographic material in front of the body. And what they'll do is they'll grab that pornographic material, pull it away, pull his pants back up, and they'll say they don't want to admit that it was autoerotic sex. So we don't know if somebody disturbed the crime scene. So that's extremely important to know. But so yes, thank you. The drugs, the fact that he had Valium in his system is interesting. So that's, yeah. Scarf caught on a tree. Well, yeah, say maybe on purpose, but don't know. Don't know. No, not that. Not that. What? Autoerotic? Don't know that it was. Just saying. We can't tell because it's very popular among young teen boys, even back then. And where you want to do autoerotic sex stuff is in private. And maybe he didn't want to do it in his room. I don't know how much privacy he had in his house. He might have had one of those houses where you weren't allowed to lock your bedroom door or any door. Your parents are like, don't ever lock the doors. And they'll get angry if you lock a door. Maybe that's why he's off in the damn woods or doing possibly autoerotic stuff, because he's having a good time. And the other 2 times he returns home, he will pull up his own pants if he were doing that. And there will be, no proof that he was doing that. He doesn't have to have porn material, by the way, but that is not it's more prevalent than you think. So the first 2 crimes, if he was not assaulted, there's only there's 3 possibilities. I'm going to give you the 3 possibilities. 1, if somebody else didn't do this to him. 1, he didn't really do much to himself, but he wanted attention. That's a possibility. Or he did something to himself and then had to explain it to his family, and that's why he started the letters and came up with a story. That's possible. But then if he did do it to himself, it wasn't just for attention. Again, it could be for attention. Well, let me go back. It still could be for attention. Somebody came and strangled me, and then he showed, look, the rope burn on my neck. And maybe he wanted attention that way. I mean, it is possible. The other possibility is, so we got just attention, even without really doing much to himself, the first 2 crimes. Second one, attention with doing stuff to himself, just an attention getter. Third, autoerotic. And the fourth would be the choking game. That's a possibility as well. I don't think it was hypothermia. No, he died from the thing around his neck. There's no question about that. So it can still be suicide even if you didn't plan to die. No, then it would be accidental death. It would be accidental death. In other words, you wanted to have a good time and you passed out before you had the good time, which is what happens in autoerotic sex, because especially the more people do it, the longer it takes them to get off. So the longer it takes them to get off, the more chance you have of passing out, and then you can't recover from it. So that's an accidental death. And if you're playing the choking game, it also can be an accidental death. The only way it would be a suicide is if truly you had the determination to make it a suicide. Well, this is a good question. A strange family didn't pick up on him behaving strangely, but makes me believe he was staging and last one scarf tightened too far and he couldn't loosen it again. Very possible. And it's also possible they did pick up on the behavior, but they don't want to admit it, or at least they only admitted it in private. And then they're just not going to, even to this day, admit the possibility of anything but a homicide. And that would be just the daughter at this point. I don't know what she knows from the parents. I don't know if the parents ever pushed it. Maybe they thought he did it himself. Maybe they didn't want to admit. I don't know. Let's see. It does seem very off. It's a crime that just doesn't quite ring true to me. It's likely they thought something was off, or he was truly under attack. And the question is, which one? Well, if he wouldn't be lying well, I don't know if he had any kind of hypothermia. It was the 5 hours lying on the snow. That wasn't lying on the snow. This was October. I don't know if there's any snow, so it wasn't necessarily any hypothermia. Let's say. All of the things we don't know. The police would know, in theory. How he was found. Oh yeah, that's part. Yes, how he was found, but the death is not deemed accidental. It's an open homicide. Well, it was, yes, but I think they originally, thought it was a suicide. They labeled it a suicide. I think they got a lot of pressure, and I don't know when the pressure started. The detective on the case now thinks it's a homicide. Doesn't mean he knows he's right. It doesn't mean he's right. It just means for whatever reason he decided to go with it. And I don't. Again, no fractured higher bone, no sign of a fight, nothing, no defense wounds, and somebody abducted him off his front lawn. It doesn't ring right to me. I can't come up with it. So, internet history. We're talking about 1980. I don't know if he had one. Maybe. I think Bill made these events up. He matured early, big for his age. His parents assumed he could take care of himself. Could perhaps he have missed the attention he got when he was a smaller child? Maybe. It's just hard to say. Just, I can't, when you're doing profiling or analysis, you can't go past what you can go past. Okay. Now, before I go and talk a little bit more about a final conclusion on this, I want to talk about the choking game, which unfortunately is way too popular. It's called, and I'll read this from Wikipedia in case you don't remember it. The choking game or fainting game is the act of intentionally cutting off oxygen to the brain with the goal of inducing temporary loss of consciousness and euphoria. It's the euphoria issue. The euphoria is what goes with the autoerotic as well. So the difference between the choking game and autoerotic sex is one just goes, "Oh, this is it's cool. It's cool." And the other one goes, "Oh, I'm having a really good time." Oh, yeah, that's the difference. One just adds a little bit extra action. It's usually younger kids who tend to do more of the choking game thing because it's a stupid thing. It's kind of like, how many of you remember? And I remember, this is the one time I remember this. I remember the carpet in my living room. I must have been 8 years old. And I just found out if you kept spinning around in circles, that eventually the room would turn upside down and you fall onto the ground and the room would go, wee! And I thought that was really cool. Anybody do that? I'm just curious. And it was like I suppose it's a childhood version of using drugs. It was just something cool, and you felt different when you did that. So that was definitely, I remember doing that. Oh, that's interesting. Autoerotic activities going on in grade schools as early as 70s. Jesus God. I did it. My kids do it too. Yeah, you're not going to kill yourself doing that because that's a safer thing. Merry-go. Remember the one you spin around on the merry-go-round? Yeah. So anyway, the choking game though, which is really freaky. I find this very freaky. But limited research on it. Sometimes it's peer pressure, challenge or a dare, a rite of passage, a curiosity and experiencing an altered state of consciousness, the experience of a gray out, or imagined approximation to near-death experience. A belief that it can induce a brief sense of euphoria, a rushing sensation, or a high. The prospect of intoxication, albeit brief, at no financial cost. So because he also had Valium in his system on the last round, and I don't know if he didn't have Valium in his system on other days, maybe he liked that altered state, and that was his way of doing it without being too obvious. So the methods of doing it, let's look at the methods of doing it. It's called cerebral hypoxia, oxygen deprivation to the brain. A ligature, such as a belt or a rope around the neck, or even just your hands or arm pressure on the carotid artery. And basically, you're pressing on the carotid arteries that prevents the blood goes up, it doesn't come back, and you get it's called vasodilation in the brain, leading to insufficient blood to perfuse the brain with oxygen and maintain consciousness. So it's like, ooh. It's exciting for some people. I just have to bring this up just because you look at the way kids do, the way that kids think, and the bizarre ideas that they have. And I remember this song when I went to Girl Scout camp. In Girl Scout camp, I was 9 years up, and this is on Reddit, and it's called the Suffocation Song. And somebody goes, they're talking about it, goes, yeah, the entire school started singing this Suffocation Song. So often it got banned. And then when I transferred, it spread to the new kids like an infectious disease. We were pretty messed up. And I don't know if you know the Suffocation Song, but here's my version of it. Suffocation, mental retardation. Suffocation, the game we love to play. First you get a plastic bag, then you put it on your head. Go to bed, wake up dead. Whoa, 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 whoa. You know that one? Oh my God. Yum Dum. Oh, that's a great song, by the way. Yum Dum and Broke. I love to death. Suffocation Song, and it's. Well, no, that's a nursery rhyme, and it had to do with the plague, but kids don't know that. So, oh my God, this is snort. Oh my God, that's terrible. Yes, and there's apparently, which I did not realize, there are a creepy song. Well, yeah, I mean, never heard that. Well, you must have been in a different place. Okay, so there's also, and I don't know why my internet is completely messed up. I swear to God, it is just not functioning. Hold on, I'm gonna see if I can find it over here on my phone. Because yeah, it's a bad internet day for me. Let me put. I just want to show the mind of kids, because a lot of times people think, oh, they don't think these things, and I'm trying to. Okay, where is it? I'm trying to find it on my phone since my computer, my iPad's just completely failing today. Okay, where are we? Come on, come on. Here we are, Bill. Not that. Wrong one. Bill, where are you? Okay, Bill. Okay, so on my phone, I just have to read you a couple of these just because it's crazy. All right, so that's one version of the song. Then we had then there was this. First you take a garden hose, then you put it up your nose, turn it on. then there's next you take a hand grenade, stick it in some lemonade, drink it fast. What a blast! Oh my God, that's awful horrible. Then we have the what's the father one? First you take a bowling ball, then you roll it down the hall, hit your dad, then he's mad. Yeah, but suffocation was the number one song. And the other day I was with my granddaughter and we were talking about nursery rhymes, and she was just coming back from Girl Scout camp. We were talking about what song she might have sang. And that one came to mind. I wanted to teach her because it was so good. And I'm like, I can't teach her the suffocation song. What if she goes to bed, takes a bag, puts it on her head and goes to bed and wakes up dead? But the small children with the concept of choking games and putting bags over your head, putting ropes around your neck to get high is there, unfortunately, way more than people realize. And it's really scary because it only takes a moment in time for your child to do this one dumb thing and end up dead. So the question I have with him is, I don't think it's a stranger attack. I don't see that in any of these three crimes. It makes no sense to me. I think he did this to himself. I think he tried to cover up what he was doing to himself. Maybe his parents, I don't even know if he came home, parents saw a rope burn on his neck, said what happened, and he had to explain it. I don't know if that's what the issue is. And so he came up with a story, and then I don't know. He seems like such a sweet guy. Seems like a really great guy. But maybe he was intrigued, shall we say, intrigued by something he had learned and thought it was cool to do, and maybe he did find it a quick high. Maybe there was a sexual component to it. I don't know, but I see absolutely no evidence that anybody else was involved. It makes no sense to me. And I think that's why it's an unsolved crime, because there's no way to connect it to somebody who doesn't exist. And I personally think the original police most likely thought it was not a stranger crime, and they probably thought he did do it to himself. And I don't know why they decided to turn it into a homicide later, because there's really actually no proof that anybody else was involved. So this is one of the rare times. Usually families fight for years to get what they think is a homicide. They don't think it's an accident. They don't think it was suicide. They want it to be a homicide because that is the way people think. They can't, a lot of times cannot accept that their child did something foolish and killed themselves by accident, or that they were so sad and depressed that they took their own lives. So, or they were seeking attention. Even he could have been just seeking attention. Maybe that was it. Maybe that evening he thought he'd seek some more attention and he overdid it. So it's possible. So I can't tell whether he choked himself for the choking game. He put the thing around his neck for more of an autoerotic thing, or whether he just wanted attention. I don't know. And I can't go further and say that. All I can say is all three incidents do not, to me, show any evidence of a third party involvement. And the letters, to me, also were letters he could create and put in his own locker and the other two lockers. And that, it's, and he's only been in school for, like I said, a week or two. I just don't see anybody bullying him in that time frame, or anybody having it out for him, and that he wouldn't know who the people were. The whole thing makes zero sense. So much as I feel my heart goes out to the sister who wants to believe for all these years that he was murdered. I just don't think he was. So let me go to some more of your questions or comments here. I don't know. Did he do a show on this? I didn't check Dr. Grande. He could have liked the altered state of feeling. Possible. Lex says, as much as the bullying thing has come up, I agree with Pat. I think he died by his own hand. Suicide or accidental, I'm not sure. I don't think it's suicidal. And the reason I don't think it's suicidal is because he keeps failing. The other two times he didn't succeed. And usually people are going to use that method. First of all, I think he wouldn't have failed twice. And then got lucky on the third time. I think it was more likely an accidental death. I would go with accidental if I had to pick one. I just can't say exactly what caused I can say that the thing around his neck caused the accidental death, but again, whether it was because he was trying to get attention, whether he was doing the choking game, whether it was autoerotic, I can't say. I cannot say. That song does make me laugh, though. It's terrible, but it does make me laugh. It is stuck in my head. It's a very catchy tune, So, yeah. Then there's a version which goes, suffocation, suffocation. And I think that tries to take the mental retardation out of it, because maybe that became something you couldn't say. But back in the day, you could say that. So you lived a sheltered life. Hey, I was pretty sheltered. I mean, I wasn't around any, that was Girl Scouts. I'm telling you, it was Girl Scouts. That's the whole point. It was, I didn't hang with any weird crowds when I was growing up. I was, a nice family, nice neighborhood. So, but yeah, I mean, that was Girl Scouts. 8 or 9 years old, whatever I was. That was Girl Scout camp. That's where I learned it. So, or you don't have twisted Girl Scouts. It's Girl Scout camp, I'm telling you. Let's see. A lot of people don't know, though. You hate that song. Well, I didn't want to teach it to my granddaughter, but maybe when she's 16, she'll find it funny. But yeah, I'm like, I have it in my head and I'm driving along and I'm like, I have to really resist teaching her this song, because then she'll go to school and sing it, and then I'm really in trouble. So I'm like, no, let me not do that one. I'll do Henry VIII instead. Henry VIII is a cute song. So if nobody knows Henry VIII, I'm Henry VIII, I am. Henry VIII, I am. Wait a minute. Oh, let's see. I'm Henry VIII, I am. Henry VIII, I am. I got married to the widow next door. She's been married 7 times before, and everyone was an Henry. Henry wouldn't have a Willie or a Sam. I'm an 8th old man. I'm Henry. Henry VIII, I am. She's probably got 7 gardens out in the back, so the dude better watch out. And he's like, well, what's that empty space for? Oh, dear. So, absolutely not. No. Parents are not involved in anything here. No. So, no. Oh, Mary Mac was a nice hand clapping song. So that was a good one. No. Lots of bodies have been buried in the backyard and put flowers on them. No, that's a very nice way to get rid of people. It's the garden one. There's something wrong with you, Lisa. Something wrong with Sarah too. I don't know many fairy tales. Yeah, like Hans Christian Andersen. I mean, all of his were depressing as all get out. And a lot of nursery rhymes are political things. People don't realize, like, that baby falling out of a tree, and the cradle rocks, a baby will fall. I mean, it's like, what the heck? What a sick song. And the kids sing it, they don't even think about the words to it. So, yeah. Dr. Grande has arms? Oh my God. So anyway, that's basically it. Yeah, I think it's going to just remain. It'll be probably remain on the books as an unsolved homicide because they decided to list it that way. I just don't. If they're going to call it a homicide, I just don't know what. I just don't know what evidence they have. The only evidence they ever had came from him. It was his story that never held water, and the notes that now have basically been attributed to him, the ones in the school, and the failed polygraph. So unless the third incident, for whatever reasons, suddenly somebody decided to do him in, and were able to abduct a 6-foot tall guy off the front lawn, and make him go into the woods and borrow his scarf to strangle him with. I can't make it work. I can't. So yeah, can't make it work. I tried. Sometimes when I look at these crimes, I try to find ways to say, what about the same thing you should do? What about this? What about that? What would make this actually be possible? And I just can't. I can't find the way. So anyway, I'll do Bollywood dancing at some point in the future. Anyway, that's it for today. Okay. So the hangout this week will likely be on Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. And I know we have the times are changing, and sorry, Australia, my time is wrong for you because you got an extra hour, but I think I don't know, when do we fall back in the US? I can never remember. Well, when that happens, maybe it's this Sunday, I don't know. But then Australia will be having to get up just as early, which is terrible because I hate the thoughts of you guys, unless you're morning people, I get up at 5 a.m, so this is great. Unless you're one of those people. Well, welcome. It's your first one. Hey, I'm glad you were here. Okay. What happens at the hangout? Essentially, what I do is I ask for any of the recommendations you have, anything you'd like me to talk about. It can be news, something in the news, like something of breaking news. It can be something a new piece of information that came out in the news. It can be a case you wish I'd take a look at, a question you have. And what happens is I do things on the hangout that I wouldn't do in a full show. In other words, if it's a case where I can say something interesting about, but it's only going to take me 5 minutes, I don't want to do a 2-hour show on it. And sometimes some of these real old cases, I might be able to actually do it 50 minutes, or I could do a separate video. But sometimes when people just ask me, I just throw it into the show and I just talk about whatever. It's very relaxed. Whatever I come up with or whatever you come up with. So that's what it is. So I do one hangout a week and one case show a week. And then in between, sometimes I put up a video that doesn't require an entire case, can be on breaking news, or can be just an issue that's bugging me. So I will probably be putting out Monday or Tuesday. I'm going to be putting out a video on the guy that's up for execution at the end of the month, Robert Roberson in Texas. He was convicted of killing his 2-year-old daughter, and now people believe that he did not do it, and he was railroaded because he was autistic. So I will get into that, whether I think this is one Innocence Project case that I can say this one they got right. And I have a big dislike of the Innocence Project. It's not because I don't care if I always point this out, if you're for or against the death penalty, that's not my issue. I say fight for whatever you believe. If you don't think the death penalty should exist, then okay, fine. But I don't like the Innocence Project getting guilty people out when they call themselves the Innocence Project. If you want to fight against certain things, fine, but don't say the person's innocent when you know they're not. And I would say a good portion, a very high portion of the cases that they represent, the person is guilty. And that really bugs me. And I think it's fraud. And I think it's unethical as all get out. And the media they're partners. And so when they get out a guilty person, nobody questions it. Every single media outlet will just praise the Innocence Project. You saved this innocent man is finally getting out. And nobody wants to say, dude's really guilty, man. So very frustrating. Yeah. So anyway, so that'll be somewhere in thank you for saying that. Oh, yes. You, Christina, yes, I know your situation with that. You loathe the Innocence Project. I'm with you on the loathing part. I am. I might not loathe them quite as much as you because you have more of a personal interest in that, but I have, my concern is that when it comes down to crimes and we're profiling crimes, analyzing crimes, and then taking those crimes to court and in determining whether a person is guilty or innocent, at least let's stay with the facts. And we can argue over whether they should have gotten the time they got, whether they should be in prison for life, whether they should get the death penalty. We can argue over those separate from whether the person actually committed the crime. And if we're dealing with technicality issues where somebody's taken a shortcut, even if the person is guilty, they did something, they should have not have done that. If you want to argue that the government overstepped because they were trying to make sure the guy went to prison, I'm okay with arguing that too. But just tell the facts and don't say that a person is innocent when they're not. And I think that's horrific. And the family of the murdered person, to watch people fawn and all over guilty people who are getting out because of the Innocence Project, and everybody cheering, and oh, it's so lovely, it's so wonderful, and the family's going, he's guilty. He killed my kid. He killed my daughter. He killed whatever. And the recent one I did was just like that. The guy is clearly guilty as hell, and a woman stabbed 43 times. I think that we shouldn't feel sorry for the guy who did it. So. That's my little soapbox. I have about 10 of them. Soapboxes. Anyway, that's it, guys. So I will see whoever's here for Thursday. Okay. And if you're new to the channel again, you'd like to be in the chat room, please do join Patreon and be there. Otherwise, do please subscribe to the channel. Keep this channel going because I really like to analyze cases, and I like people to learn how to analyze cases as well. And so that's why I do it. Anyway, thank you for being here. See you next time. Bye. I'm waiting for my last technical difficulty here. I can't. It is a day. Let me say goodbye again. Goodbye again. Let me see if this. What am I doing here? Bye.